welcome to the Coffee in the Green Room podcast. My name is Cindy White, and I'm your host. And today I have the ultimate honor of interviewing the one, the only Marjah Simon. So let me just tell you a little bit about Marjah. So she served in two branches, not one, but two branches of the military for the U.S. Pretty insane. She has jumped from poles hundreds of feet in the air, and she also is a lawyer. And now she is the owner and operator of the Authors Writer Academy. So I hope you guys are ready for an amazing podcast. Marjah, thank you so much for being here today.
Well, I'm honored to be here. This is truly exciting. I've gotten the chance to work with VIP Ignite and Truth Management at events and be trained by your amazing speakers and the people that you bring in, and to be a client of yours as well, which is absolutely outstanding, and to have spoken on your stages and all of the good things. So I am happy to be here today in the green room with you.
I'm excited to have you. Because you know what, the reason I love this podcast is all of the really cool conversations, yeah, they happen on the golf course, they happen over cocktails, but when you're in a green room, that's where the real conversations happen. So Marjah, you've had such a wide array of experiences. So talk to me a little bit about how do you go from being a lawyer, serving in the military, to starting a company to help writers write their books? That's like mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, well, I am a believer in and, not or, wherever possible. One of the things that is, I think, is just the way my brain has always worked. It's like, how can we be all inclusive? How can we have all the fun? How can we eat all of the desserts? It's like whenever there's a buffet, some people are like, oh, I think I'll have this dessert. Not me. I take a little bit of every single dessert and put it all on one plate. And so I have a little taste of everything. And that's kind of how I live my life as well. So I guess it translates. It's like I have, in addition to all of the things that you said, I've also been a chef. I had a food company with my sister for many years where we cooked for celebrities and for professionals. And I have been an entrepreneur in one way or the other since I was 8 years old. And so that's always been a part of my journey. I had the honor of watching my grandfather, who I think was the first entrepreneur. I didn't know that's what he was called. I didn't know that's what he was, but that's what he was. And so somehow I absorbed that. With a second grade education, my grandfather served in the US Army when it was still segregated, fought in Germany against Hitler. He had a trucking company. He was a preacher over two churches, and one in New York and one in South Carolina. He was one of the first Black farmers in New York. And he raised, I was lose track, I think 8 children with my grandmother, who he had been with since she was 16. And he just passed away a few years ago during a pandemic at age 98.
Whoa.
And so yeah, and so watching him, it was just kind of what you did. And so seeing him live what you would think of as multiple lives at once just seemed normal to me. And so I love being able to be open to what the world is offering. I love being open to myself and seeing, how am I pivoting? How do I want to show up in the world now? I think a lot of us get stuck in doing the same things over and over and expecting different levels of happiness. And so when I was in the military, I started out as a heavy combat engineer doing carpentry and masonry. And we were the first females that they allowed to do this. And so they did not treat us nicely, but I graduated anyway. And while I was doing that in the reserves, I put myself through undergrad and then law school. And then that's when 9/11 happened. And I volunteered for Army active duty during that time, and went into the Judge Advocate General's JAG Corps. So I was a lawyer for the Army, and again, running multiple businesses, side businesses during that time. when I got out of the military, I was working as a civilian lawyer, and then I applied to the Air Force JAG, and I had some life transitions, and I wanted to go back into the military to kind of bridge through that transition. And I knew the Army was too rough, tumble, and dirty at that time for me again. And the Air Force, I applied there. And after basically a year of annoying them and being very persistent, I got in because they did not want to accept somebody from the Army. And
Like there's such competition between the different branches of the service. My dad was Navy, and then he went to Army/National Guard, and it's like there was this conflict in him for his whole life because he did both.
Yes, yes. Yeah. And I resolved that conflict by saying, my blood is green and my clothes are blue. And I have them and I have them both proudly.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and while I was in the Air Force, I said I had multiple businesses. I had one with my sister. We were running our food company, and then I moved to Germany. I always tell people I was imported. I fell in love with a German guy, moved to Germany, was there for 10 years. And even that transition, moving to another country with 2 kids, you know, people, friends, family, like, oh my God, that's so scary. What if you don't like it? I'm like, they're not revoking my passport. If I don't like it, I can move back. Which 10 years later, which is exactly what I did. So I'm back in the US now. And, you know, a few years ago when I decided that law was no longer how I wanted to show up in the world, what I was doing, I felt like my gifts were being misused, and I didn't have enough choice in the clients that I was serving. And that was really important to me. And it took me 5 years to step into that moment of courage. Tony Robbins is one of my coaches, and he always says it always takes a moment, a heartbeat to make a decision. It took me 5 years to get to that heartbeat. And in that moment, I said, enough is enough. I am not going to play my life small, choose this, the quote, safe, easy route just because it's convenient or comfortable. And I decided to step out into the unknown and say yes to being uncomfortable, say yes to being scared, say yes to myself versus paying homage to all of the people that were around me, telling me that I couldn't, shouldn't, and wouldn't have the courage to do.
That's awesome. And something you say that I love is that you're a grave robber.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that so much, because the first time I heard that, I was like, you're a what? Oh my God, that's so scary. Like, what do you mean by that? But now there are a lot of things that I've come to embrace that you've shown me through our friendship. But one of them is being a grave robber. So the thing I love is that with what you're doing with Authors Writers Academy, I tongue twister, sorry guys. But
just call it AWA, AWA.
Okay, that's so much easier. The thing I love that you're doing with AWA is that you're literally you're creating an easy path for people to write their story, or write a story, write their life story. And I think that's so important, because I was an English major in college. And one of the things I've always dreamed of doing, which is definitely on my bucket list to do very soon, is sit down and write my own book. So can you talk about how are you robbing? First of all, talk about being a grave robber, and then talk about how you're helping to rob the graves.
Yeah, so I tell people I'm a grave robber. My mission, vision and purpose is to rob the grave of all of that wisdom, all of those stories, all of that experience that falls into it every day. So for example, I talked about my grandfather. He never wrote his book. His story, all his thoughts, those nuances that made him who he was, that made him that legend, it lives on in my mind, but not for the rest of the world. It's gone. And that hurts my heart. And I see this happening again and again every single day. People that are making an impact in the world. I work with successful entrepreneurs, entertainers, in the Hollywood field space, and or professional athletes and retired athletes and things like that. So I work with entrepreneurs, entertainers, and executives like doctors, lawyers, and CPAs. So people that have taken a non-traditional route in life. They figured something out. They stepped into uncomfortable. They stepped into doing the more when they didn't have to. They encountered oppositions. They encountered immense hardship financially, time-wise, family-wise, everything. And they figured out some stuff in that process. And so my passion is being a conduit for their voice, their stories authentically, and getting that into the hearts, the hands, and the heads of the lives that they are here to change. And so I'm here to help them expand their reach, expand their network, expand their client base, and to put their legacy out into the world. And I absolutely love doing that. I've published multiples of my own books and have many of my books coming up soon, as well as being just honored to help so many people on their journey. When I see them holding their book, when I hear, you know what, I couldn't have done this without you. Thank you so much. I know that I've made the right decision to walk away from the quote, safe, secure job with the title in the corner office, where I was depressed, by the way, and crying every day. To actually creating a lifestyle that I am proud to live, and being a grave robber and helping people to live their highest self. I love what I'm doing. I love my life.
That's awesome. You've said the word legacy several times as we've been speaking. So here's my question for you, Marjah. What do you want your legacy to be? When people are talking about you after you're gone, your kids, your great grandkids, your great great grandchildren, what do you want your legacy to be?
That's a great question. I would love for my legacy to be, and I'm going to paraphrase one of our dear friends, Les Brown, that I lived full and died empty. I want my legacy to be that I gave everything that I had to the world so that they could elevate, so that they could have choices. When I look at my daughters and my grandsons, I want them to live a life of choice, not of obligation. One of the things that, there's a phrase in the Bible that says, a good person leaves an inheritance for their children's children. And I want that to be my legacy, not just an inheritance of money, but an inheritance of wisdom, which gives so much more than money ever could. An inheritance of courage, an inheritance of love, of compassion. I want to leave that for my children and their children, and not just for my lineage, but for all of the friends, all of the clients, all of the people that I get to connect with. I want to open that up so that I can leave that for their generations as well. And so that's the legacy I want. That's what I'm working on.
I love that. Well, Marjah, for anyone who's listening to this podcast, what do you have a free gift that you can give to them so that you can help to continue leaving that legacy?
Absolutely. Just a couple of things. I have a private Facebook group called Get Published Lounge, and it's free. And I go live every Wednesday, and I share wisdom and information and guidance and inspiration and encouragement for people on their courage journeys, and also answer any questions that they may have about publishing or becoming authors. And they are free to jump in there. And I also have a free booklet that I'd love to share with my clients called Multiple Ways to Monetize Your Book. And if you want to jump into the Get Published Lounge and ask for it, I'd be happy to send it to you. No obligation, nothing, just so to open up your ideas of what's possible for you as a published author.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Well, Marjah, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be on the podcast today. I am so excited to just call you friend, because there are so many things that you've taught me just by being around you and just having the opportunity to just okay, I'm going to tell a funny story. It's my podcast, so I'm allowed to tell a funny story.
Now, any story you want. I'm so curious what this is going to be.
So when you and I were together in Orlando, we went to Target, or Target, my favorite store. And so the other day, when I was in Miami not too long ago for an event, I was in Target, and like I used to go through the self-checkout lane every time. And then I was with one of the models was helping me, and he was like, "Oh, well, let's go over to self-checkout." I was like, did you get paid to work here? Or are we paying for this stuff? I do not work here. We're going to the regular checkout. And it sounds crazy. And if you're listening to this podcast, you're like, has Deneen gone off the rails? You know what? There are certain times where you need to be given permission to let people help you. Mm-hmm. And that's one of those things. I mean, people get paid there to do that. But every time now, I can't see a Target sign without thinking about you and that moment, because that moment was so transformational for me. And it may sound nonsensical, and it kind of makes us chuckle, but like those are the types of moments that we have when we're together. And I just want to tell you that I really appreciate that. And I will never, ever use self-checkout in a Target again. So thank you for giving me permission to let people take care of me once in a while.
Oh, my pleasure. And thank you for sharing that funny story. Yeah, when you and I were in the store, I was like, yeah, I don't do self-checkout. I don't work here.
We don't work here. We're paying their bills. They're not paying ours. So let them take care of us.
And I look at that in every area of my life. It's like whenever something comes up, one of the first questions I ask myself now is, who can do this that's not me?
Yeah. And that's another thing you've been helping me greatly with as well.
Yeah, it really makes such a big difference, because then we're all free to operate in our zone of genius, and we give other people permission to operate in their zone of genius, or how they are wanting to serve in whatever capacity at that time. And so I think that's a win for everybody.
And again, that's something you're doing with Awa too. You're giving people permission to allow you and your team to share their story, so that they can go operate in their area of gifting and leave that legacy. So
yes, they don't have to, spend 10 years holed up in a mountain somewhere, with a typewriter and a cigar and a brandy, like, this old image I have of authors, from hundreds of years ago, from hundreds of years ago, who would think that, and people still have this image in their mind that that's what they need to do in order to be a published author. And we don't have to.
Yeah, we have
Let's help you. Let us help you.
Yes. So if you're listening to this podcast, let's go to Facebook and join the Get Published Lounge. Marjah will drop some great content for you. She'll give you the tools and resources that you need to become a published author. And then you also get to know Marjah, which will enrich your life as well.
Thank you. If you want to see any of our authors that were published, we're constantly uploading most of our authors onto my digital business card, and there's lots of other info and all my social media. It's marjah360.com. That's marjah360.com. So go to marjah360.com and you can find out about me, about all of the authors and all of their amazing books that we get out to put out in the world. And I'm so excited that Michael Fomkin's book is going to be there very, very soon. Yeah. That is just exciting for me.
Yeah, we're so excited too. We're like, it's been a work in progress, and now it's like we could see the finish line. We're so excited about that also.
We're in the final phase. His book Finding Fame is absolutely brilliant. I love what him and you and an entire array of celebrities and agents and all people have put into that book. It's a beautiful, beautiful work.
It is awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marjah, for being on the podcast. Thank you for helping create Michael's legacy as well. We're really excited.
Thank
Awesome.
you.
All right, guys. So if you enjoyed this episode of Coffee in the Green Room, make sure you hit subscribe. You can find us on every platform where podcasts are published, Apple iTunes, iHeartRadio, you name it, we're everywhere. So make sure you find Coffee in the Green Room, hit subscribe, and I will see you on the next episode. Thank you.